All right, welcome everyone. So, if you're an athlete or even just interested in exercise science, you've probably heard the term VO2 max thrown around a lot. But today, we're going to dive into a different metric, one that might just be an even better predictor of your actual performance. We're going to talk about the real tipping point of your endurance.
So let's just start with a fundamental question. When you're pushing yourself, really pushing, and you finally hit that wall, what's actually happening inside your body that's forcing you to back off? For a long, long time, the whole conversation was dominated by VO2 max, your maximal aerobic capacity. And don't get me wrong, it's important. But it turns out there's another marker that's a far more powerful predictor of how well you can actually perform on race day. And that brings us to something called the lactate threshold, and more specifically, a standardized point that we call OBLA. This is the real science behind what athletes feel when they say they've hit the wall.
Okay, first things first, let's get our terms straight. The lactate threshold is that exact intensity level where your body starts producing lactate faster than it can clear it out. You can think of it like a metabolic traffic jam that's just starting to form in your system. This graph here, it shows you exactly what I'm talking about. As the exercise intensity increases, that's along the bottom axis. Just watch that yellow line, which is the lactate in the blood. See how it stays pretty low and manageable at first, but then, bam! It hits a very clear inflection point and just starts to shoot up. That right there, that's the threshold in action. Now, to make this something we can actually measure and compare between different people, exercise scientists defined a very specific marker on this curve, and they called it the onset of blood lactate accumulation, or just OBLA for short. So here's the magic number, everyone, 4.0 millimoles per liter. This is the standardized concentration of lactate in the blood that officially defines the OBLA point. It's a universal benchmark that tells us a major shift is happening in your body's metabolic state. Okay, so let's get into why this one specific point is so incredibly important for any athlete or, well, any student of exercise science. Why do we care so much about this 4.0 millimole mark? This slide lays out the difference perfectly. Think of your VO2 max as the absolute maximum size of your engine. It's kind of like your genetic potential. OBLA, on the other hand, is the highest pace you can actually sustain for a long time. It's a much better measure of your usable, trainable fitness. And believe me, this isn't just a theory. The research is crystal clear on this. The intensity an athlete can hold right at their OBLA point is a way more consistent and powerful predictor of their actual race performance than their VO2 max is. You could have two athletes with the exact same VO2 max, but the one with the higher OBLA is almost always going to win that endurance race. So what does this actually look like out in the real world? Well, let's compare a highly trained endurance athlete to just an untrained person. The difference that this one metric shows us is it's truly remarkable. This chart really puts it all into perspective. For most untrained people, that 4.0 millimole OBLA point, it's reached at about 55 to 65% of their maximum oxygen uptake. But just look at the trained athletes. They can push all the way past 80% of their max before they hit that same metabolic tipping point. They can just sustain a much, much higher intensity. So naturally, this brings us to the most practical question of all. If OBLA is so important, how can you actually work to improve it? How do you push that threshold higher? Well, the primary way is through smart, consistent aerobic training. By increasing your training volume, and especially by doing work at or even near your current threshold, you force your body to adapt. It literally gets better at clearing out lactate and even using it for fuel. So you're effectively pushing that OBLA point to a higher and higher intensity. You are literally training your threshold. And that's really what I want to leave you with today. For anyone who's serious about their endurance, the question isn't just how big is your engine? The real question is how much of that engine can you actually use? So if you really want to unlock your true performance potential, maybe it's time to start focusing on the most important metric that you probably aren't even tracking.